Hi, I'm Larry Richardson, your step-by-step chef. In this episode, we're going to make an absolutely delicious piece of Americana. Wait, kind of sounds like we're going to cook a rocking chair. We're not. We're going to make a fantastic fried chicken cutlet. And this is such a versatile little dish because you can serve it with just about anything and people will be completely satisfied. It tastes great with like a fettuccine or something like that. Or you can put it in a sandwich, a basic sandwich with a couple of pickles and some lettuce and tomato, and you have a meal. It's absolutely fantastic. And I think you're gonna love it. So come on, let's cook. And here are the ingredients for our fried chicken cutlet. First of all, we're going to use about 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken, 3/4 of a cup of cornmeal, and I like to use a slightly rough cornmeal, not a super refined one. It just gives the chicken an extra crispiness. We're also going to use a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. We're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. We're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and the other thing we're going to use is about a cup or 2 of milk. That's what we're going to dip the chicken into. I'm also going to use, I think it comes out to about 3 cups of oil that we're going to put into the pan and heat over medium heat. And then we have this plate with paper towels to drain the chicken on to get rid of some of that excess oil. And I have this bag because we are going to pound the chicken thin into cutlets before we fry it. That will help to make sure that it cooks the whole way through. So let me show you how to put this together. And the first thing I'm going to do is take this broad bowl and just add some milk to it. Again, this is our dipping station. We're going to dip the chicken in this first before we put it into our flour mixture. So I'm going to just do that, set this aside, and put the milk in the fridge so it stays good for my cereal in the morning. And for our flour mixture, here's our cornmeal. That looks good. Just kind of spread that out a little. Here's our 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Just kind of thins it out a little bit, helps it hold together. Here's our onion powder. Our garlic powder. Our salt. And our black pepper. And as usual with step-by-step recipes, make it this way the first time, then adjust it to your taste the next time. In fact, I'm going to post a recipe for making a Cajun spiced chicken cutlet too, which is quite delicious. I really like that one on sandwiches. So I'm going to show you how to make that too. Let's just stir this up, get it nice and uniform. Okay, that looks nice and uniform. I'm going to set that aside. And here's our chicken. Now, try to trim off if there are any kind of rough parts on the chicken, you know, those bony or chewy parts to the chicken. Kind of trim those off ahead of time. Nobody wants to eat that. And make sure the chicken is fully defrosted too before you try this, because you want it to cook all the way through as it fries. And be real careful doing this, but what we're going to do is thin cut the chicken. So just press it down, pick that halfway point, and we're filleting it. That makes it thin to begin with. There we go. So you can see, you have 2 fillets right there. And again, all I'm doing is I'm putting my palm down and then I'm cutting it in half, lengthwise. And just be real careful. Don't nick yourself. It's not worth it. You can also buy chicken cutlets at most stores, pre-trimmed like this. Oops, this piece is just a little bit funny. But you can buy it pre-trimmed, and then you don't have to do this. Or you can use chicken tenderloins That's another option. They're just going to be smaller pieces, but they achieve the same end. Now these cut so well, I could literally just dip those and cook them, quite frankly. Sometimes you're going to have a thicker chicken breast, and when that happens, in fact, this piece is kind of thick. So when that happens, we get to practice a little anger management on the chicken. So we take our Ziploc bag, or if you don't have a Ziploc, you can wrap the chicken in saran wrap. Just put it inside. And then you either take a meat mallet or the bottom of a flat jar. Like if you have a pickle jar that has a flat bottom, or a wine bottle or something like that, and you just pound it. Now this serves two purposes. It flattens the meat down, so we're going to be certain that it will cook through during the frying process, and it tenderizes it. I'm just using that smooth side. Don't use this side. That's the side to tenderize beef with, so I'm using this side, the flat side. Now explain to everyone in your household ahead of time what you're doing, so they don't think that you have come undone in the kitchen. So that flattens it out. And you can make it even more flat than this, but I don't really want this to be paper thin. And I'm just going to do it a little bit for these other pieces because, quite frankly, they're pretty thin to begin with. So again, you can take either this meat mallet, or if you have a jar of some sort. Just be careful when you're doing it. Now you can see that one flattened out very fast. Kind of broke into two little pieces. And then we'll do it again with this piece. And I won't bore you and show you every single piece unless you're really enjoying this. But after I'm done, I'm going to meet you over at the stove. And here's our operation. Here is our chicken cutlet factory. I've had this oil preheating over medium heat. Now everyone's stove is a little bit different. If your stove is like a superheater and this starts to smoke, make sure to turn it down. You don't want to start an oil fire. But let's give it a little test with some of the flour mixture. It's sizzling, so I know it's ready to start the process. So what I'm going to do is take one of the chicken cutlets, drench it in the milk, and then get this mix on it, nice and even. Do a little sprinkle. And then carefully, holding the top edges of it, lower it into the oil. And you can see it's starting to fry right away. And I have just enough oil to cover most of the chicken. You don't have to deep fry it. You don't have to have the oil all the way up to the top and drop that in and deep fry it, because we're going to roll it over to make sure that we get both sides of this. And I'll give this, because it is chicken, I'll give this about 5 minutes per side. And give it a little bit of a nudge to make sure it's not sticking to the bottom. And let me focus in on that pan so you can really see what's going on, because we are going to just repeat this until all of the chicken is gone. Give it just another little nudge. And again, if it starts to smoke, or it gets too splattery for you, then just turn the heat down a little. Not so much that the chicken just sits there like it's sitting in water. You still want some frying activity going on. You want to see some of these bubbles, but again, you just want to be careful with oil that it doesn't ignite. And the other point is never ever leave the stove when you're frying on it. In fact, you really shouldn't leave it at all unless you're slow cooking something in a tall pan, because people do have accidents with oil. It's probably, I'm willing to go out on a limb and guess it's the #1 reason for kitchen fires, is people don't tend the oil. So just keep an eye on it when you're doing this. Don't go anywhere. Don't get involved in a phone call or conversation. Really focus on it, especially the first couple of times you do this. And you really don't want to play around with it too much when it's cooking, because you don't want to knock all the crispy coating off of it. I can see that the edges are starting to brown. This is about after 4 minutes, and I'm ready to turn it. Real careful with your tongs. Just do that. And you can see it's getting a nice crispy brownness to it. It's getting a little hyper for me, so I'm going to turn the heat down. I'm down to about 3/4, let's say, just over a half heat on my stove. Just a little bit over half heat, a notch or two, and that should do it. And then I'll give this side about the same thing, like 3 to 5 minutes. And I'm going to give it a slight turn to make sure it's not burning underneath. That's going to be delicious. Look at that. Look at that crispy brown forming. But again, you don't want it to turn, you don't want it to burn or scorch. You just want a little bit of that nice brown color. And that's what I love about this cornmeal mix. It really does make a crispy shell on this sandwich, or on this cutlet. Just take a quick look at what's going on underneath here. That's 3 minutes into the process. Yep, it's just browning nicely. So I will give it that extra 2 minutes. And the cooking time will depend on how thin your cutlet is. And you know, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve depending on how thin you like it. How long you want to put it in the oil. But the main thing is you do want it to get crispy, and you do want it to cook all the way through. You don't want any pink chicken in the middle of this. It has to cook through to be safe. Okay, it's starting to slow down a little bit too much for me, so I'm going up a little bit on the heat. I just have a real finicky stove, so this is not an unusual occurrence. But it's almost like driving a stick shift. You really have to know what you're doing to operate the stove, and you get better and better at it. In fact, I probably wouldn't know what to do with a stove that behaved itself. Oops. Oh, that's going to happen. I just knocked a little bit of the crust off of it. It's still a little bit light on the bottom. Patch that piece. Okay, so that was 5 minutes to that side. Let me just see what's going on the other side. Again, be real careful around this oil. Okay, it's getting nice and crispy. I'm just going to give it 1 more minute on this side, just to make sure that the chicken's cooked all the way through. And then I think that'll do it. And I'm just going to keep on moving through all of that chicken, all of that, the chicken cutlets that we prepared. I'm going to keep putting them in the milk and the mixture and putting them in the oil until the entire set is done. And normally what I would do is I would have more than just this one piece of chicken in there right now, but I wanted to give you a good sampling of what's going on. Wow, is that going to be crispy? And there are different weights of cornmeal, so if you like yours a little bit thinner, you can buy a more milled cornmeal to make this cutlet with. I like it pretty coarse. And I'm satisfied this piece is done. I'm just taking my paper towel, putting it right on there so it can drain out. And again, I'm just going to repeat this process until all of the chicken is prepared. So congratulations, look at what you just did. You just made these delicious homemade chicken cutlets. Now my agent and my director, they already ate a couple of the pieces, so they have to do the dishes. You don't. You can make this at home and make someone else do the dishes. Now, if you want the printable version of this recipe, please go to my website, stepbystepchef.com. There you will find the printable version of this recipe and well over 175 recipes at the time this video was made, and probably a lot more since then. I just can't help myself. The other thing you're going to find is my cookbook, Cooking with the Step-by-Step Chef. And this will be updated about once a year in November with whatever I felt like cooking that year. And I just enjoy cooking so much, and I enjoy sharing it with you, that I hope you will take a look at the cookbook, because all the recipes are in here. I mean, you can print them for free off the website, but it takes forever. It takes like 10 years to print those recipes. It's that involved. But if you buy the cookbook, it's all right there. It's there for you, your friends, and your family. So please check it out. So again, my name's Larry Richardson. I am your step-by-step chef, and I'll see you on the next episode.